All right, I want to welcome all of you tonight to our lecture series here in the GenLab. My name is Ken Mulligan. I'm a professor in the School of Engineering. I teach technology entrepreneurship and strategic innovation. And I also teach a class in the business school in new venture development. The New Venture Challenge, $100,000, winner take all. No, not really, but $100,000. And, it's my pleasure to welcome our guest speaker tonight, Darryl Keeton II. He is an entrepreneur and a person with a great story of his evolution from the corporate life as a consultant and evolving into an entrepreneur with swag. He is a graduate of the University of, dare I say, Arizona. But we won't hold that against you, Darryl, because we are a welcoming crew here in Sun Devil Country. How many of you have any entrepreneurial aspirations? Anybody? Well, what are you hoping to hear tonight? To get inspiration for your aspiration? Is that it? All right, look, here's the story. I'm just going to keep it really simple. Every one of you has a possibility that's waiting to be born. And entrepreneurship is the way for it to become a reality. But here's the harsh undercurrent. Entrepreneurship is hard. But it will be the greatest thing you will ever do in your entire life. That much I guarantee. So that being said, Darryl is also, let's see, Black Diamond
Business Solutions.
Business Solutions. He has a startup. It's called Sense of Great. It's a smart city
vehicle to infrastructure communication platform.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot. And if he wants to talk about it, he can. But today he's going to share his story of his transition and transformation from being a corporate employee to being an entrepreneur. It's going to be an informal presentation. You're welcome to participate. There are microphones at your tables. So when you're ready to ask a question, please take the microphone, make sure it's turned on. It's your opportunity to learn whatever it is you want to learn from his experience. And without further ado, Darryl Keeton.
Good evening. Thank you. Feel free to interrupt me during my presentation to ask any questions or chime in for any feedback. So my name is Darryl Keeton. I'm actually originally from Colorado. I'm a big person in skiing, so I just went there for 3 days, did some work, and went to Vale and Keystone. So that's where I really got my business name, Black Diamond Business Solution. It's for my love for skiing Black Diamond terrain, which is identical and correlates to the challenges that business owners have in growing their business. I connected to the Black Diamond terrain. The challenges it takes to go down a difficult mountain is the same challenges I see business owners facing in growing their business. So I started my business I'm on my 4th year now. I was working with a friend out of Colorado, and he recruited me from corporate into helping small businesses. And really the concept that we went together was connecting financial services with helping people grow through their cash flow to help them make investments personally and to grow their business. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, and that was my toughest lesson learned going from corporate to being an entrepreneur, was who do you work with, how do you develop trust, and how do you really make sure that you're targeting things that you want to do personally that values your ethics, integrity to move forward and help other people out. So it was really tough when I came back around from that venture, trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And literally, I got a call the day that I said I actually need to go out and do something. I got a call for one of my first 2 clients, and I flew out the next day. They're called Elephant Coffee Importers. They import coffee, specialty coffee from Ethiopia and Kenya in containers. So over the first year, I didn't really have a full vision. I was just literally on the struggle bus and had to make some money. I had some savings, and literally the day that I came back from helping my father who had knee replacement surgery, I had $0 in my savings account, and I didn't have any money toward my name. This is the first time ever, and as an adult, turning, just being 30 and not having a source of income, not knowing, well, there's a source of income, but not having the funds out on hand. And really not knowing what to expect in life next. And that's kind of what entrepreneur is about. What's next? And you're gonna always have this fear in the pit in your stomach, but I think that's what drives a lot of people to keep moving forward. because no one wants to fail, and you never really want to report failure. But failure is actually, in all honesty, your friend, because you can learn from your failures and others. It should propel your experience and growth. And that will kind of tie back to my concept I'll share with you today about entrepreneur swag. So kind of going into my first year and hitting that kind of the lowest point, I would say, in my first couple years, I was recruited by Facebook and did fully recruited all the way to San Francisco for a very technical job that I knew I wasn't 100% qualified, but I was getting confidence that I was like, all right, I could go make some big money again. Now, I used to work at Deloitte and Touche, made really good money there, American Express, and but when you're an entrepreneur, you think you're going to make that money again, and in reality, sometimes it's not always there. But going through that interview really kind of gave me the confidence and the comfort that I was missing when I started my business, and I think that's really key to make sure that you are going to develop that over time. It may not come instantly, but developing that confidence and comfort is part of that gut check feeling. So part of that experience when I came back, I kind of came back and killed it. I got involved in my community, in the startup community, started meeting startups, and really just started going to the right business owners I wanted to work with. Going into my second year, I started to form kind of my vision and what I wanted to grow into, found some bigger clients, still was dabbling about my messaging. And then now in my last year, my third year, is really when I started to see that growth and potential. So really what I learned from that was you really have to trust yourself, surround yourself with the right people, but really most importantly is to make sure that you're true to yourself. Don't take sacrifice and risk just to get by to earn a buck. Is this what activity or process or service you're going to do really going to fulfill your life and help others grow too? Because money should always come last, and what you do to grow yourself and others should always come first. So I'll kind of introduce entrepreneur swag. So that's my concept I developed and I'm working on maturing. As everything that you do in life and even in business will be mature, it never stops growing. And entrepreneur swag is focusing on kicking your ego out the door and focusing on building your knowledge, skills, and experience. And I really brought that concept together from the time I was in corporate all the way to the time of now, over the last year, really seeing what I saw from volunteering in the community, working with small business owners of all sizes, from $100,000 to up to $7 million in revenue, and making sure that people were understanding what it would take to move forward. So you probably heard the term "wantrepreneur." It's kind of the phrase used for people that want to be an entrepreneur but don't really take the steps or action to execute. Then you have the people that are actually doing something, but they may have what I call a luck business. We have people that say they have the best idea that's better than sliced bread, right? That's the ones that we're talking about with entrepreneur swag, that have that ego that really think no matter what they do, it's going to be successful. That does happen, I'm not going to lie, but it doesn't happen for everyone. You have to really start focusing on what does it take for you to grow as an entrepreneur, and to focus on building those skills and experience. So even being in school like you are today is the first step in learning something new that you may have not had a chance to learn before, and then going and applying it, right? So the first is execution, right? You can't do anything in life if you don't execute. And my motto is hustle and grit. Who knows what hustle is? All right, so we're going to teach the ones that didn't raise their hand what hustle is. Hustle is tied to grit. And I always say, if you don't know grit and grit don't know you, you better go find grit. Because grit's everything that you'll do to sacrifice in an ethical way to move forward, but your desire to move forward and be successful is that hustle. You'll go knock on every door. You'll follow up with that person every day. I had a client, one of my bigger clients, it took a year to get that client. And it's one of my funnest clients, called Horsefly Brewing Company. They're in Montrose, Colorado. When I first was introduced to him, he had some financial needs. And at the time, he was trying to exit his business or have his business partner with his wife sell it to them. They were trying to go through this process and had some challenges, but at the time when we first started meeting, they weren't quite ready. But every month I went to Montrose, or even every other week, I was calling Phil up, texting him, or stopping by his restaurant to say hi. Eventually he was like, I'm ready. But that was true hustle. I didn't give up. I saw a big opportunity. where over last year working with them, they saved 10% of their business, and they're looking to expand 2 to 3 locations this year alone. But that dedication, that hustle is paying off now, which is actually printing return on their business. So find that hustle that you like, have that passion, that desire, and the grit will come out that you'll do whatever you can do to succeed and be successful. Reality, right? So what's reality versus facts, or what you just want something to happen, right? When it comes down to business and entrepreneurship, you have to face reality, right? So I hear a lot of people say, I want to get 1 million users in 3 months. All right, well, show me a case study or an example of someone in your market or industry that's done the same thing. Because just because someone else has done it doesn't mean that you necessarily can do it, but how is that plan you're putting together and a strategy really going to help you get there? So being able to see the line of, all right, well, maybe you're not going to get to 1 million, but maybe your first goal, the reality is you're going to get to 10,000. Then you're going to get to 50,000, then 100,000. Sometimes you got to move up the ladder to see that reality happen versus just saying it's going to happen instantly. Because how do you really face a failure when it doesn't happen and own it and develop yourself to say, we're going to try again, right? So always make sure that you're hitting milestones and setting milestones, and personally and in business, especially personally, writing down your goals. You're 3 times more likely to achieve your goals if you write them down. So the willingness to change. So that's another concept under execution. A lot of people that I come across sometimes, and depending on generations, aren't willing to change their ways, right? If you're in a business, let's put the example of Blockbuster. You guys familiar with Blockbuster Video? Who killed Blockbuster? What businesses? Who else? Redbox, right? Blockbuster knew of the innovation these other companies and platforms are doing, but didn't want to change. Their business model was the same forever. They finally did come out with like the kiosk for Redbox, but that willingness to not change based on market change is what eliminated them where they're not even in existence, right? Another example is Toys R Us, right? I made a funny tweet. I didn't really get any responses from it, but I thought it was funny, where I asked Amazon to buy out Toys R Us because I still wanted to have a place I can go to feel like a kid. Toys R Us may not be around in the next 2 years. I grew up with Toys R Us. Right, so things are changing economically where even as a business owner, marketer, industry, you have to be willing to change. So having that flexibility to adapt is what will help you be successful in that execution. So that leads into adapting, right? So kind of similar to Toys R Us, what are they doing now is they're trying to figure out different ways to bring people into retail. Well, retail is changing a whole bunch, right? Malls are closing. There's not so many, everyone's ordering everything from Amazon. I think 45% of all Americans have an Amazon subscription, right? So Toys R Us right now is creating processes for augmented reality. That's one form of adapting, but I don't think that's a perfect solution because that's a one-time experience. That means that you would have to go to every Toys R Us to get a unique augmented reality experience. So the reason I brought that up is I think it was a good form of adapting, but it wasn't the ultimate solution that's going to keep them up in the game of the retail market, right? Look what Amazon's doing. They're adapting by changing what we're doing with grocery stores now. They just open up their first store where you don't even have to interact with a cashier. You don't even have to pull out your wallet. You check in on your phone, like we're always on our phone walking anyways. So they're adapting to what humans are looking for. They're adapting through new technology, and they're adapting to simplify our lives because we want to do things so quickly now. Especially as I assume most of you are young millennials born in the 90s. Your guys' world is way different from me as an 80s baby. So you guys want things way more quicker and timely without any hesitation that's going to slow you down, right? So the second phase is ethics and integrity. So as an accounting major and background and touching people's numbers, credit cards, bank accounts, you have to have the highest ethics and integrity to make sure that people can trust and respect you. When you lose that trust and respect, you lose credibility. So it's really hard to grow yourself if people aren't going to surround themselves to trust you. So make sure that you always are performing your acts and your activities with that ethics and integrity in mind. So that also leads into the respect, right? So as a business leader in my community, I always knew that I wanted to grow myself as a leader. But to grow yourself as a leader, you have to surround yourself with leaders and gain their respects to be champions of yourself. One example that I'll give is I attended an event through the Kauffman Foundation. The Kauffman Foundation is an organization out of Kansas City, Missouri. They sponsor events like Fast Track, which is a free online tool and application to help you start your business using different templates like a business canvas or a value proposition. They take you through a whole process for free, beginning to end. But the Kauffman Foundation invited me to an event called the EY Strategic Growth Forum. It was the top 4 conferences in the nation for entrepreneurs, and I was one of 3 entrepreneurs across the whole US they can connect with and invite. They're a national sponsor, but that event was based off the respect that they had for me to be able to showcase myself in front of them and the individuals that are other leaders across the US at this event, but also respect that they were happy with what I have done to adapt and change and grow my community leading 1 million cups. So it's really key that you make sure that when you're going out there and developing yourself as an entrepreneur, that you're gaining that trust and respect for people so that you do get opportunities, because respect will just open doors. So one thing I mentioned earlier is about the confidence, right? Sometimes when you're doing things in life, you may not have that confidence, but challenge yourself to grow that confidence level. When I came out from corporate to entrepreneur and then I was on my own, I had like very little confidence. I was nervous going into people. I was used, when I was at Deloitte, we had a team approach. Even when we went to lunch, we brought 1 more person there. I had to develop myself to grow, to be by myself and provide kind of showcase and sell myself as an individual versus having a team. So it took me a while to get over that learning curve. So there's gonna be things that you do in life where you have to grow that confidence. Just don't give up on it. It will come and you'll see results from it as you grow others and you're growing businesses. And then one thing I really believe in doing, and this is thankfully for my parents, is giving back. So I volunteer for 1 Million Cups every week down in Galvanize in downtown Phoenix. We have a business come in and share their story. I'm also on the core team for Startup Week, which is February 19th through 23rd down at George Washington Carver Museum. So if you guys have a chance in between classes, I recommend checking out the registration links are open and checking out the schedule to see what kind of leaders are presenting on different topics that may interest you. Also been involved in Startup Weekend, which is a kind of a hackathon, but starting a business in 54 hours, where you come in, pitch an idea, and the top 8 ideas get selected, and they form a team, and they prove their concept, and then pitch it to judges at the end of the weekend, and get placed 1st through 3rd. And not everyone's a winner, honestly, but you have to be, it's really fulfilling to say that you started something from scratch within 54 hours and have something to showcase for it. So giving back is key for me because 1, I think it adds value to others. I've always put others before myself, but 2, it actually builds up your network. So if you maybe have a challenge or you're shy of going out and meeting people, volunteer. You'll probably open up, but you never know who you'll meet in that volunteer setting that can help you open doors further in your life too. And then the last phase is growth. So I always start there with being resourceful. So I believe as being a leader and one that wants to be a CEO or empower others is, if you don't know, you have Google. Just joking. But you can go and find out information if you're resourceful by research, asking people in your network. I use LinkedIn a lot to ask questions to find people of different professional services that I don't offer to see if I can find someone to help one of my clients. When someone ever asks, hey, do you know this information? I always go back and say, what did you find out first when you did the research and your searches? And if they came back and said, I don't know, I was like, well, you got to go be resourceful because I got to take time away for myself to go find this out for you, but you didn't even get a chance to look for it yourself. So I always really admire people that are willing to take this extra step to find out additional information, to be resourceful, because that shows a lot of character of who they are and who they're willing to grow themselves beyond just, hey, can you just open this book and tell me what this is? The other concept is experience, right? So as you guys are young students, you're always growing every day. You're always learning. Make sure you apply that to your experience. Just because you open a book and you read it doesn't mean that you actually go in the real world and do it. Go and get an internship. Focus on a capstone as engineering students, but really make sure that you're learning from these experiences. I remember when I was in college, and to get to the Big Four, they said, go do X, Y, Z. That's all I did was apply myself to it. I worked on campus. I was involved on campus. I got the grades I needed to do. I went to the networking activities, and I got a job at Deloitte. And it wasn't just from the grades and hard work. I was applying to what my professors, the people at these Big Four firms were telling me, and my network, and following those steps, because a lot of people are giving you free advice, but when you're young, sometimes you don't think it really applies to you. But really what they're doing is giving you a roadmap to success. So when you hear people say, hey, you should go do this, it doesn't hurt to try it at least once. If you don't like it, you don't have to go back. You could try something else, but sometimes it just takes one time trying it, and it may change your life and move forward. The other thing is skills development, right? So as an accounting major, I always wanted to do more than what I read in my curriculum. So I got involved through jobs, internships. I worked a job from college from my freshman year all the way to my senior year. And honestly, my internship is what got me a job at Deloitte, because the internship company was called Phillips Dodge. They're now Freeport-McMoRan. They were a client of Deloitte. So when I went into that interview process, that really helped me being able to kind of hurdle over barriers of my experience to say that I worked at one of your clients and this is what I applied from school, and now I think I can facilitate this here. But my resume was stacked. So that's something I think you guys should really make sure you focus on as you develop yourself, not just if you want to be an entrepreneur, but just in life to grow, is make sure you get that experience. That's what people are looking for today. And it's a competitive market no matter where you want to go. If you want to stay in Phoenix, New York, San Francisco, Dallas, Houston, Miami, make sure that your resume really breathes and shows that you're diverse in what you do by being involved, giving back, and experience. That can be paid or non-paid. I always say go after paid, but hey, if there's a non-paid intern that's going to help you grow to the next job or be the career development, go apply yourself. And then networking. So networking really does pay off. And you'll hear people say it's about who you know, and every opportunity I've had has been based on that. But you also have to apply yourself to make sure that you get those opportunities right too. So that's kind of what I view as entrepreneur swag. You gotta execute, you gotta show growth, and you have to have leadership. So, any questions?
Yeah, I'm just wondering. Would you like, please? Oh, sorry. Hello. So I was just wondering, like, what do you consider like a really good resource for like young entrepreneurs?
Sure. I think ASU's done really well at developing an entrepreneurship program that's inclusive across the whole university. When I went to U of A, they only had it through the business school. So what I try to do is find people that I want to be like or I'm inspired by, and I'll try to research them through their LinkedIn profile or Facebook or their bio and see if there's some type of connection. I'm a firm believer that if you want to grow yourself, and you see someone that's doing it, go connect with them. If you're not sure, ask someone who they may know. This could be your family member, your cousin, or one of your professors saying, you know, I want to go work at Intel. You know, see who's in their network, but be resourceful and go check out their LinkedIn and see if they have anyone that is working at Intel. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? So I'll give you guys a little bit different background of something else I started recently. So part of Black Diamond Business Solutions was to develop an actual solution that was technically driven. I love consulting, I love helping people grow, but I always knew that there was more for me in life to keep adding value to others by giving back through technology. So when I went into different markets and industries, I found a lot of different gaps. And over time, I came and got connected with the smart city concept, with autonomous vehicles. How many people actually see the Ubers around town? Has anyone ridden in one of them yet? Me either. So, no problem. So I identified over time, it didn't happen overnight, but over time I kept challenging myself with some of the risks that would be applied with autonomous vehicles. Right now, they're testing with a human driver behind the car. Well, what happens when you remove that human driver? How will that car still function and make human driving decisions? Waymo's kind of testing that right now in Chandler, but I just always kept saying, like, there just seems to be, coming from a risk background, there seems to be a void of a risk that someone needs to apply. I'm not sure how, but how do I figure that out? So over time, I went and I applied myself and was resourceful by attending smart city events. And through those events, I was able to really validate and, thank you. I was able to kind of validate and vet through my, what's called an MVP. It's a minimal viable product. And that's kind of what helps you start initiating your revenue. And with your MVP, you may have, and as an entrepreneur, you may have a big, bold vision, but sometimes you have to like narrow it down and say, what do our customers want today that can potentially grow us to that bigger vision, right? So that came down to the reality. And in my technology, SensorGrate, it stands for Sensor Integrated Technology. I wanted to be able to create information that communicated to autonomous vehicles. Well, there's not too many autonomous vehicles on the road today, so that wouldn't really work 100%. So I had to really go back and really identify potential customers and ask them how would they apply this technology today. So that's where we're at right now. We're still in development phase. We're still very early, to be honest. But we actually have a lot of customer support. I'm working with a couple of professors through the Fulton Engineering School. One's I met with right down the street on College, and then one out at Poly campus at the holidays. And then we're working with another person in the IT realm of ASU in hopes to get something installed. And then working with some of the municipalities to create contract agreements. So SensorGrate's a smart city vehicle to infrastructure communication platform. So that's called V2I in the terms of smart cities. You're probably asking, like, what is he talking about? Basically, in smart cities, what's happening is people are collecting what they're referring to as big data. Data that they're able to uniquely dissect and understand how they can reapply it to better their processes and procedures around traffic, environmental, weather, you name it. If it can touch and have a sensor on it, you can pick up data from it. And our goal is to pick up this data to provide value to municipalities, commercial real estate, construction companies, universities for the research and data, but really to advance our platform through machine learning and AI to provide analytics to autonomous vehicles as they're coming into intersections about what's happening there. So how many pedestrians, dogs, runners, cyclists, vehicles, and their speed, so that we can make sure that those vehicles are driving safely for the environment that they're in and to help them avoid accidents. So we kind of want to be a secondary control to the vehicle. And some people ask, well, there's a concept called vehicle-to-vehicle communication. And that really means that the cars will have the ability to know where they're at just based off geofencing and GIS information, but also based on the sensors that they're surrounded with. So if I'm driving down this road right here, it's a fake road obviously, and then there's another vehicle coming from behind the wall back there, how would I know that vehicle is approaching if there's no humans in it? So the concept there with vehicle to vehicle is that they would be able to communicate and know where they're at based on the mapping environment that they're in. However, there's still some risk there because not every vehicle has that vehicle to vehicle communication, and we kind of want to be that secondary control as they're developing into having all cars. I think by 2060 they predict, or 2040, that all vehicles will have that technology. However, there's a lot of rules and regulations that have to be changed to make this happen. So my recommendation is if you guys are looking for opportunities in the future, smart cities will be a $425 billion industry by 2025. That's 7 years away. For those that are freshmen and probably going to grad school, that will be right around the time that you are ending. So I believe that's one of the next biggest industries that's going to blow up, similar to like how blockchains and cryptocurrency are developing very rapidly and being applied. I think we're still new in smart cities as people are still being educated, but it's an opportunity for growth based on market size and what's happening. So yeah, we're currently, I have a team. That was one of the biggest things I had to do before I can even expand my idea, is finding a team. So something I did differently was with Black Diamond Business Solutions is I approached it as a sole proprietor. I had went through the approach of having a team. That didn't work out, where I honestly lost trust and faith in humanity and said, I gotta kind of form this together before I can re-expand. But I had to go through those life lessons and build that confidence for myself and really understand the reality of what I could do, what I was comfortable with, what I want to form my ethics and integrity around. And now that I've matured over that, I'm ready to work with a team again and approach and make sure that we're doing things as a whole versus as individuals. Because nothing hurts more worse than like working with a group of people that you would consider your brother or a family friend or whoever it is that's important to you, and then it doesn't work out. So in business, be careful when you're approaching things with friends or family. I'm not saying that it may not work out, but just understand the sacrifices that everyone has to take to come in, because it's not fun or a great experience to lose those relationships or activities. But now that I'm more open to it, I've really made sure I was really precise and strategic in finding the right people based on the areas for technical development and mapping that I need. So actually working with a friend who helped start the robotics club out at ASU and the Hyperloop team. And then one of my clients, we're not doing work this year together because we want to focus our relationship on growing the business. But I asked one of my other clients to join me, who's a GIS and geospatial mapping specialist. So when you're going out there and forming teams, make sure that you're applying your values and visions and making sure people are aligned to it, because you don't want to work with someone that's not aligned, because you'll always have that conflict. I had one client actually give me keywords and had me define them based on how I would describe them, and she checked off the list and made sure that I was hitting keywords that aligned to her own definitions. And we still work really great together. But that was like one of the best examples that I've seen of someone really making sure that they work with someone based on just identifying 12 values that's core to their beliefs. And she still uses that today, and I even apply it sometimes when I'm not really sure about working with someone. I'll go through my values and kind of make sure that they are structured around that individual's core beliefs too, because like I said, you can always come around the experience where you don't align, and that connectivity kind of separates you apart. And it's tough in business because you're not moving forward, you're now moving backwards versus trying to grow the business together. So yeah, Sensegrate started back in October, and when you have an idea, make sure that you take whatever steps as possible to make sure you have a valid idea and that you have potential customers to buy. And that kind of goes back to the entrepreneur swag concept. Is I had a big vision, but I knew the reality is today no one's going to buy it. So I got to go find and refocus my vision on a smaller scale to find opportunity for businesses and customers to potentially buy it. So we went through that iteration probably 2 to 3 months really before we said, all right, this is what people would like to see happen. Let's approach it and develop this way. So hopefully this year my goal is to raise about $1 million in grants, bootstrapping it through my own consulting business. So taking funds and making out of there to buy equipment, hardware, and even some technical support. But that was a sacrifice I decided this year to see the opportunity of that vision grow. So that's something also as an entrepreneur you also find is making sacrifices, right? I left a 6-figure salary It's hard to go down to like 30,000 for 1 year. It's quite the difference. What I used to make in 1 quarter happened in 1 year, right? I wasn't eating ramen, but a lot of salads, not anymore. But yeah, you make sacrifices. I used to drive to Colorado where a lot of my clients are. It's about a 12-hour drive. I fly now, but I used to drive out to Colorado 1 or 2 times a month. And that time took away from doing business, but it was a lot cheaper than flying at that time. That was a sacrifice. Not traveling or hanging out with family and friends, right? I couldn't spend money to go out and do entertaining activities. It was hard. I had a different lifestyle, different focus, but people were supportive. But sometimes you just have to make sacrifices that you may have to do later and work hard today to grow that. Another lesson learned from starting my career as an entrepreneur: don't give up. Be patient. Sometimes as humans, we have the perception that everything's going to happen the way you want it to. But really what it takes is executing a strategy and a plan, and forming it to make sure that you're gonna meet the requirements and a milestone that gives you enough time, but you're not like really bearing yourself down and putting too much pressure on that you're not gonna achieve, right? Where most people put a lot of pressure on themselves and then they fail, it's because they don't know how to overcome out of that suppression or the depression. So make sure that you're really hitting milestones that you can achieve, and then keep growing. So like I mentioned earlier, if you want 1 million customers, set your milestone at 10,000 and grow to 100,000. So kind of going to go around the room and ask you guys some questions. You mentioned that you want to be an entrepreneur. What kind of idea do you have?
Microphone, please. Just go behind you. Not entirely sure on an idea yet, but I'm studying computer science, so I'm just still kind of just learning on what's around.
Okay. What year are you at ASU?
Senior.
You're senior. Are you applying for jobs, or are you going to go straight into entrepreneurship?
Applying to jobs first. Just like interning. I'll have one semester next year.
Okay. Nice. I think that's great that you're going to start kind of a career path first. Getting that experience is key. Where I see a lot of my friends that are young, straight out of ASU, some of the challenges they have is verifying that experience that investors or other stakeholders or customers are looking for. So make sure that even if you have an idea and it's going to be straight out of school, prove yourself with that experience so you can showcase it to people. I had a friend yesterday who wants to meet with another individual that's a pretty big influencer in the Valley. And she's like, I want to go talk to him. I was like, well, what tangible items are you going to have in front to talk about? She's like, well, I haven't really created something. I said, create a deck that's 2 to 3, maybe 4 slides. I go, that's going to put you ahead of the game if you just go there and talk. There's a lot of people just talk, but what actions are you taking to actually showcase you're serious about it? So with Sensigrate, I had an idea, but really when I went to all these different parties, I had a deck that I went through and I showed the problem, the solution, the market size, our team, and our assumptions. We're still creating idea and validating it. Everything that we're doing wasn't solid yet. We didn't have the data. We have case studies of data, but we didn't have applied data we can say, oh, we can put it in the market. But opening up as assumptions gave them comfort that we're still working on something. We want to work with them to get there. So when you're going through that approach of creating your idea, make sure you're going through your client, those potential customers, and validating it. Sit down with them like you're a consultant and ask them, is this how you would approach it? Do you like the look and feel of this? How would you apply it? How often would you use it? And most importantly, how much would you pay for it, right? Because you have to know what they're willing to pay for it to get that return later. Then you can get into your financial models. Who else raised their hand to be an entrepreneur? All right, let's share your idea.
Well, like me personally, I have a lot of like different ideas. I'm still pretty young, so I'm not really stuck with one idea, but you know, since I'm young, I'm taking the opportunity to really just get a lot of experience, as you said, and like being really active in the like engineering community, doing like hackathons, just to really just again get that engineering experience.
Perfect. And what year are you at ASU?
I'm a freshman.
Oh, okay, nice. Are you from Arizona?
Yeah.
So as a freshman, I think something that was big for me was, like you said, getting involved, but also go to the career fairs. Have your resume ready. It's better to practice and prepare than to go there the first time and fail. So when I was at U of A, I used career services, which I think ASU has one too, to help me build my resume. Every time I did an activity, I built it out and I got it drafted and I had them review it. But what the career fair really helped me do was open up the door to see what opportunities were out there, what interns existed. And a lot of companies will say, well, yeah, you're too young, but you know what, keep knocking on that door. If you really want an opportunity, you never know what opens up for you. So being involved, go see your professors in their hours, right? Those are the people that will give you that letter of recommendation for that company that you want to go to. But you're not going to get that letter of recommendation if they don't know you and they're not comfortable with who you are. So utilize the resources that you have, because these professors are wanting to see their students grow and have successful stories. That's what makes the university great, but you got to be involved and connected with them to make sure that they'll help you out. Anyone else want to share? Otherwise, I'll start pointing people out. All right, the guy in the hat in the back. You like looked right at me, yeah. So I was like, all right.
So basically one idea that I had, just more of a question than like an actual idea, but how would you recommend going about like potential competition between undergrad students in the same major seeking the same positions in the future, whether it be, you know, a software engineering internship or something more or less around the same area?
That's a good question. So just to repeat what you asked, the challenge is going after careers or opportunities where someone that's by just level of school are ahead of you, right?
Yeah.
I think it depends on the job, right? So some jobs require that you're at a certain level. When I was applying for internships for the Big Four accounting firms, I remember applying for one as a sophomore and I said, not this year, but go get an internship somewhere else, right? So, but I never let go of the relationship. So I kept in touch with that individual and I respected what they were doing because they have a plan that works for them. But for me to fit in that plan, they said, go get experience, right? So seek out and ask them for advice of what you can do next as an alternative, but keep that relationship. So I'm not sure where you guys are at in social media, but professionals aren't looking for you on Snapchat. So make sure you have a LinkedIn account. Make sure you update it. Add stuff that you've done. Ask your friends and family to endorse your skills and experiences. Ask them the right recommendations. And then really, I use LinkedIn all the time. So before any interview, I'm going on the person's, I find out who I'm interviewing with, and I'll read through their profile. Right? And then I'll engage. It makes it a lot easier in that interview session to ease the nerves that you'll have if you know who they are, and you can break the ice by asking something about their experience, right? I always leverage, when I was a consultant at Deloitte, I always leverage seeing their kids' photos on their desk, right? Most parents love talking about their kids unless they're like some baby kid, but leverage the things that they get involved with. It makes the conversation a lot easier. But yeah, I just recommend, like, if it's not a fit today, ask them what they would recommend to make sure that you shine above your peers the next year. Any other questions from anyone else? About yours? All right, perfect.
So we have a question from an online user. They said, if I was going to try to create a startup, but I don't think I can do it by myself, how do I find the right people to bring on board?
Sure, that was where I was at with Syntegrate. So I have a technical background, but it's more risk and compliance with security and privacy, some Java coding, but nothing with extreme languages like C++ or Java or Python. And really when I was going through that MVP phase, I was like, all right, I know what I can do through my network and my skills to get here, but I literally laid out a roadmap of what I was missing. So I recommend identifying what gaps you have, depending if it's a product or a service, and then talk to people. So I work at a Galvanize, and they have a program for students for technical development through data science or mining, and also full stack development. So I went and talked to one of their professors there, teachers there, and asked them some feedback around the autonomous vehicle space. And they actually sat down with me and like laid out the technical framework they would apply. And I said, well, what kind of resource would have to do this? And they gave me someone that knows physics because of the machine learning and AI, someone that knows Java and Python, and then they gave me some open source platforms. So I leveraged my network to say, I'm looking to do something here technically, but I'm not sure exactly who I'm looking for. Can you help me define it? When it comes down to kind of strategy or market wise, right? So one of the advisors I'm targeting is retired from the Traffic and Transportation Control Department from Scottsdale. Right? The reason I'm targeting him is I've never, ever in my life worked in traffic control and transportation. So I went to go find someone that did. So really, you know, you hear a lot of people say, don't share your ideas, people will steal it. Actually, it's helped me get further by people saying, well, I've heard about this. Well, you should talk to this person. It really helps you validate their network through your network. Because like I said, I have clients that are, third of my clients are construction transportation, but none of them that deal with data. They're more like contractors, engineers. So really creating that roadmap of what you want your MVP to be, and then finding the gaps of the resources you need through asking people and just applying the roadmap of your strategy to see who can help you. Any other questions? So who's all seniors right now? All right, so just out of curiosity, what's your game plan when you graduate?
I'm going to grad school and then I'll be working at Raytheon.
Can you use a mic?
Oh.
What are you going to do at Raytheon?
Oh, okay. Hello? Hello? Okay. I will be a electrical engineer.
Oh, wow.
There.
Congratulations. Are you going to, is it down in Tucson, or are you going to California, Colorado?
Tucson.
Okay.
No.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Who else is graduating soon and a senior? What are you going to do?
So I'm applying for the master's program here in the ASU for business analytics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And do you plan to get any interns or anything? Internships?
I'm international student, and for international, it's kind of hard, but I'm still looking online to get intern during the summer, and so.
Cool. I know some of the corporations down here have some programs. So I believe Intel and American Express. So because they have their international presence, right? So if you're looking for those internships, maybe target some of the companies out here that have an international presence, and seeing what kind of programs they have. And it doesn't always have to be a full internship. Something I did too to kind of get the experience. And to the gentleman in the hat kind of asked, I did an externship. So like the Big Four had like a 2-day, 3-day session where you actually go in. It's kind of a mini conference where you sit in, they talk about their business, you meet resources, but it was a way to get in the door to meet those individuals and get connected with their culture. So it may not be an internship, but look for an opportunity to shadow people. That's always helpful. But also the term is externship if you're looking for something that's like 2 or 3 days. Anyone else want to share what they're doing after their senior year?
So this summer I landed an internship at General Dynamics.
Oh, nice.
Thank you. And then after that I was planning on potentially moving to Michigan and looking to work for LG.
Okay. Are they based out of Michigan?
No, they're a Korean company, but I have some friends that work in LG, and I thought maybe I could look into that and go into like software on that end, because a lot of like Android manufacturers kind of inspired me to study what I'm studying now.
All right, nice. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned leveraging your friends. Literally, I got my job at Deloitte based on a senior manager who was friends with one of my friends I studied with in college. And she was a semester ahead of me, but when I studied, I had a group of friends I studied with, and she did an internship the summer before, and after the interview, he called her and said, "Do you know Darryl, would you work with him?" She said yes. And that literally was like the next step that got me in. So leverage your friends that are already in corporations or companies you want to work with. Just never know, but they can help kind of ease that gap or open the door for other opportunities. Any other questions or anything? Mike.
So I have a friend who wants to go into consulting, and what advice would you give those people who are just wanting to get in?
What kind of consulting, do you know?
I think it's going to be kind of like an environmental kind of like environmental consulting.
Yep, I have a couple clients there. So I'll be honest, when I was in college, I didn't even know what anything was about the Big Four. And as an accounting major, that's all they talk about, and it's good. It's great. Deloitte, when I was coming out, was the top firm to work out of college to grow your career, 6 out of 8 years. And I kind of walked in blindly, right? But what would I tell someone today to prepare for consulting? I would go back to the entrepreneur swag concepts, because a lot of that is applied from what I learned in corporate, even as an entrepreneur. But getting experience, one thing they pushed a lot was so if you want to get a job at a big firm, you have to have solid grades, right? Your grades do apply when you're applying for jobs. They don't really necessarily care once you get the experience, but starting off, you have to have good grades. 3.0 or better, 3.5 even better, right? And then I would go and identify the firms that she's interested in, right? So each firm has their own culture. That was challenging, right? So when I was accounting major, there's 4 different firms. They're all unique to their own culture, but they all will recruit you based on their interest in you. So you kind of really have to build those relationships, right? Spend time going to their network events and their activities. I remember when I externship with PwC, I drove all the way up for one day to go to a bowling alley event from Tucson, right? And it sucked because I was stuck in traffic from an accident for 2 hours, so I was a little late. But that was just one sacrifice I made in college just to get connected in that firm. Other advice I would give her: seek opportunities for internships and connect with people on LinkedIn, right? So LinkedIn is, I didn't have LinkedIn like you guys had LinkedIn, so we can search everything, right? It's kind of crazy what I wish I had today that I wish I would have had back in the day. But yeah, research and identify what companies she wants to work with and ask people for coffee. I remember when I was trying to learn a little bit about marketing, I heard a lady out here speak, and I just engaged with her with questions on LinkedIn. I've never met her again, but we still talk through just messaging, and these are deep conversations on LinkedIn messaging, right? So there's professionals out there that are willing to help individuals. You just have to seek them and kind of honestly say, hey, will you mentor me? Will you advise me? Will you give me advice? Will you make an introduction? But to do that, you have to gain that trust and respect from them too. You know, some people, something I believe in is I have a personal brand. So I give you an introduction and you make it, but then you kind of burn the bridge with that individual. Is that person going to respect or believe in what I bring to them again? So make sure you're vetting through those people that you're going to surround yourself and sacrifice that introduction, because your personal brand is tied to that. So that's another big thing I think I learned a lot about, is creating that personal brand, right? When I left corporate, I had corporate relationships. I worked with American Express, Limelight Networks right down the street here, Amcor Technologies, Banner Health. All my connections were corporation. Well, when I went to small business, it was a whole different persona. So I had to create my personal brand. Even though I had the background in Deloitte, not everyone knew what Deloitte was. I also had a very technical mindset of how I spoke, because when I was at Deloitte, I was speaking with directors, CEOs, CFOs, C-suite individuals. So the language you spoke was a little bit more technical and advanced to what they understood. But when I brought that to small business owners, some of the words went right over their head. So it took me about a year to really dummy down my language. And now even in my business, I don't focus on my services, I focus on selling my stories. My clients are my inspiration, my clients are my success. Without my clients and their growth and the projects that I've worked with that helped them achieve accomplishments of milestones, I wouldn't have anything to really give me the credibility that I have today. So that's what I'm looking to do. My 4th year of my business is focusing on telling those stories to help me scale the business. So I have about 10 monthly reoccurring clients right now. I'm looking to grow that to 20 plus. But to do that, I have to find the team. So I started at the end of last year, finding resources that were like-minded like me, that wanted to do more for the client than even for themselves. And I started bringing them into my business as contractors. Eventually, I'll start hiring employees, but the challenge I found when I did hire employees initially was I'm traveling a lot. And sometimes you have to develop people through training, and I was not really helping my business grow by not being there to help support those individuals. So I kind of had to take a hard lesson and take a step back and say, how do I do this differently? I started from scratch and I became a sole proprietor again. I didn't have any resources. Then I was like, all right, I need to find individuals now that I have better cash flow that are probably higher in their cost but have more experience. And that's helped out a lot because they're actually able to execute and be independent on projects versus me having to be there to walk them through that. So that was kind of a long-winded recommendation, but yeah, leveraging the network and really connecting with the right people. Who wants to share kind of what they're inspired to be after they graduate? Who has a strong 10-year kind of vision for themselves? You guys haven't thought about it yet, huh? It's okay. I had a vision until I was 30 and I got stuck. Kind of growing into the Big Four was a great opportunity that opened up a lot of doors, but when I left the firm and went and worked at American Express, I had a vision there, and that didn't work out so well. Then I didn't really create a vision for myself. When I turned 30 working with my friend, I just saw an opportunity, I just kind of went into it. And that was a huge lesson learned of I have to have a bigger vision and create goals for myself so when I get to 40, I really know what I accomplished. So I do challenge you, for those that didn't have a 10-year plan, your 10-year plan may not form to what it is 10 years later, but start with your 1-year plan, start with your 3-year plan, start with your 5, and see your 10. My 10-year plan when I was 30 is, have you guys seen the show The Prophet? So some of you have. So The Prophet is through Marcus Leomas. He's an entrepreneur where he goes out and identifies businesses that are doing really successful but have some challenges in their growth through debt, cash flow, customers, or market is disappearing. And there was one company that created wooden bats for MLB, and that was their only product really. But they had other products that weren't selling, and it was eating up their inventory, and inventory costs money. And if you don't sell it, you're losing money. So he helped them redefine their vision and their business model to scale. So he goes in, and what I really like about him that I'm not there yet is he has 100% say of what happens in the business, right? So the challenge that I have with that for my clients is it's their business still. But my goal is to grow, integrate, be able to sell it off, where I can go in and go back and help small businesses, because I do have a passion in making sure people grow themselves. but so I can have a little bit more say in how that direction goes. So that's my goal I'm 33, so in 7 years, hopefully, my vision is to have, I don't have 150 million in assets, but that'd be really nice. But my goal is to have enough assets where I can actually go in and provide value to businesses, kind of like an investor, but more, I want to approach it still in the same consulting methodologies that I'm doing today, but I just have a little bit more cash to back me. But yeah, that vision took me a while to form, because like I said, when I hit 30, I didn't really look past, right? Being 30 is different than being in your 20s. And I think a lot of people kind of focus you on your 20s to make sure that you go to college, get a good job, and everything will work. Well, life changes. And sometimes it's unexpected, sometimes it's unplanned, and you really have to make sure that you stay focused. So that's something that was a big lesson for me to hopefully carry forward the rest of my life, is making sure I form that plan and keep developing it. Keep challenging and pushing yourself, and be flexible to learn, right? With the smart city concept, it took me to really find the words and terms around it, probably 3 months. I had a vision, but I didn't realize that people already had similar ideas, but the technical description of it was already out there. I stumbled across it as I kept researching and reading, and literally I would stay up to like 2 or 3 o'clock at night just reading. And the reading, it wasn't even like I was tired, I was just excited about what I was learning, right? So like I went from a consulting business to whole smart city technology, totally different spectrums. But what I'm leveraging the consulting business is actually apply what I'm learning to go into different municipalities and opportunities to actually provide strategy for smart city adoption and implementation for different businesses, especially around big data. What kind of technology can they focus on in their current business model to help them grow in this new industry that's coming? And the reason I'm applying it to my consulting business as an additional revenue stream to bootstrap SensorGrate. So sometimes you're just always adapting and being flexible, and you never see what new opportunities will come. Any other questions or insights? You guys are a tough crowd. Anyone from out of state? I know some people. Where are you from? California. What part? Oh, nice. Anyone else I know? Where were you from, sir? China. Anyone else foreign? Where are you from? What part? I'm sorry? Okay. I did a trip out for a friend's wedding to Goa, Delhi, Jaipur, and Agra. So the weddings, have you guys ever heard about Indian weddings? Oh, they're just so different from American weddings. They were actually really unique. They're about 7 to 10 days long, right? And every day is a special spiritual event. And they even have like a wedding for the husband's side and the wife's side. And I went to 2 days out of the 7. And the day that I went in India and Jaipur, there was about over 1,600 different weddings happening. They based their wedding dates to astrology. So it was a full moon, and sometimes they even base it on the positioning of the stars. So that's a really unique culture that we don't get in the United States to really any exposure to, unless you're probably British because they colonized there, but that was a really cool experience. So that's something I really love doing, is traveling. I try to go to 2 new countries every year. Last year I did Mexico, which I've been to before, so it doesn't really count, but I went to Japan. I did 10 days, and I'm a big skier, so I did 10 days, 3 days in Tokyo and 6 days skiing in northern Japan. So if anyone's big skier or snowboarders, they get a lot of snow there all the time. So I wanted to go this year, but I dedicated to helping the startup community by being on the Startup Week core team. So I took the sacrifice of not going back, but I'll definitely be going next year. This year, I would love to go to Dubai. They have a smart city conference out there in November. And I'm thinking about Costa Rica. I haven't been there. Need something a little tropical after the winter season. So, anyone else likes to travel? Where you been last?
I guess last was, Mexico.
Okay, nice. Has anyone done a study abroad? Any interest in the study abroad? Where do you want to go? Oh, nice. Tokyo's. So when I got to Japan, I was like not ready to see culturally what I was going to experience. There's a lot of people there. So like when I landed, I took the train down to Tokyo, and I got off at what I now know as the busiest subway system in Tokyo. And I'm with my ski bags and my suitcase. It's, you know, I'm out there for 10 days, and I just couldn't believe how many people I saw in one area. And they come from all directions. It was like, you ever seen a nest egg of spiders break apart? It was like that, but with thousands and thousands of people. But yeah, it's a great city. I definitely would go back. The culture there is really unique, and the food, and their restaurants aren't like American restaurants where you go into a room this size and you sit down. You kind of go in and out, but it's not fast food. It's still, but more small, like literally prior to where this table is to where I'm at would be the size of the restaurant, but even smaller with the kitchen. But you come in, you get your ramen, you come right out 15 minutes later. But it was a good experience. And that's something that I would say too, developing yourself is to really appreciate and connect with other cultures. Creating inclusion in your initiatives for developing teams and your friends will only add value to really be open-minded. Unfortunately, I think in our society, we're kind of pushed to be one way, but there's a whole different world out there. But if you take the steps to be open-minded to experience it, you'll learn a lot about yourself and who people are. And I wish that we had the opportunity to really, I think it should be actually part of, even before college, is actually go to 2 or 3 countries to really understand different cultures, to really be appreciative of what we have in the US. Going to India was one thing that changed my life. When I left for India, that's when the first business I started with a friend didn't work out. And I literally went to India with no clue of goals that I was doing in life and income and what I was gonna do when I came back. And it was right around Thanksgiving. So I went out there, I was like, I can't worry about anything in the States because I'm gonna go to India. Can't change anything now, and you know, when it does, I'll just have to do it when I come back. But went to India, it opened the door to understand what the value of money was and kind of remove any material thoughts I had about income and really focus on how to grow myself in life, where I focus on having fun, being happy, and giving back. That's my monetization in life. And it definitely pays off over time, but that really helped me say, what do I need to do to be happy? Right? So find those things that keep your passion, right? That was something I was challenged with in my 20s is, am I doing things that I'm passionate about? Like when I don't even call what I do work. Like literally I wake up, I open on my laptop, and it's not like when I was working other jobs where I have to be there, check in, report to people. Like I do things, I'm ready to talk to my clients. I'm ready for them to call me. I'm ready to go visit them. I have fun, right? So I think that's something that it takes time to grow. And yes, I may give you that advice, but it's for you to develop that experience and fine tune that passion. It may not happen today, but make sure that what you're doing in life is based on a passion. I think it really helps relieve any stress or anxiety or depression because you're doing something that is just normal to you. Right? So Centrigrate's different because I found a new passion. So you're always going to find things that you like and you're always going to probably develop new passions. Don't be afraid of that because what you're doing is you're growing and you're challenging yourself. And I think sometimes in society, we're not challenged to go and take on new things. Right? I remember my mom, when I started being an entrepreneur, she's like, are you sure? Yes, Mom. Let me ask you a different way. Are you sure? Do you need money? No. And I had my family offer me money and I said no every time, even though I needed it. Like I got to a point where I was paying rent halfway through the month and at the end of the month. So I wasn't making, that was my first time not being able to write the full check. It sucked. For me, it was embarrassing because you have a pride that you don't want to showcase a source of failure, but then you actually embrace that failure because you're able to overcome it. But the reason I didn't take any money from my parents is I needed to prove to myself I could do something, right? So sometimes you just got to take on that challenge and those sacrifices to prove it to yourself. And that's what built my confidence and where I got comfort over time. But in the beginning, I think I told my mom once, I was like, I'm ready to live in my car if it comes down to it. Don't tell that to your mom ever. That would be a nightmare. But I was willing to make sacrifices to prove myself and really start going. And I'm glad that I learned that mindset about myself, because it really challenged me to overcome hurdles and make sure that over time, there's a lot of bad things in life that could be the worst case scenario, but it's on you on how you overcome it and what you do to position yourself to achieve. So you look like you have a thought or a question.
I don't know if I have anything in particular to say, but I guess I really appreciated the stories, or really.
I have different stories from embarrassing moments, even at Deloitte, that I was like, oh wow, I may lose my job. But actually that year was like my best year, where I got what they consider a 1 rating. So at Deloitte, and you'll see this when you get to different jobs, you're going to be, and it's challenging because you're always trying to do your best in what you do. And then the way that you kind of move up in companies, or you get bonuses and performance, is through performance reviews, right? That was hard for me when I was in my 20s, because you have people that aren't your parents, that aren't your friends, that are just your coworkers telling you what you didn't do right. And I remember I messed up on something at the beginning of the project, and 6-8 months later, they wrote down one item that I didn't do right from the beginning, but I improved myself. That sucked. It hurts. Like, you're like nitpicking at what I'm doing. But what I would tell you is, when people give you constructive feedback, it honestly is going to hurt the first time. But as you mature and grow, and that one thing sticks in the back of your head, it'll probably make you a lot better, and you'll be more appreciative of that person versus like, I despised them. And I wish I didn't. And I still have to reach out to some people. I'm like, I'm sorry. Because I was immature, right? Like, and when I say that, it was like, I just didn't know what they were trying to do to help me grow. So when you are in that corporate environment or wherever you're at and people are giving you constructive feedback, be humble about it. And sometimes you're going to brush it off and like, they don't know what they're talking about. But sometimes later you'll reflect and be like, wow, they're actually right. I can improve here. And so something I always try to do is educate those around me about areas they can improve at. I'm always asking other people to give me the same feedback for myself, right? You can develop yourself, but it's better if other people are willing to give you advice to help you develop of things that you just don't reflect on or understand, right? So always that's part of being of the reality and being open to change and being flexible. Right? If you know that if you're doing things a certain way and other people don't like it, it's probably something you have to change within yourself, but you have to accept it, right? And I think when you're young, it's hard because we have an ego that says no matter what we say, that's what's right. However, there's professionals that have been there, done that, and these are leaders. They probably have something that's of value, and in hindsight, looking back, it's like, wow, they were just looking out for my best interest. So if you get review comments or feedback, take it as an area of improvement versus someone's trying to put you down. And I wish I would have had that lesson learned going into corporate, because I think the situations and processes that I did back then would have been a lot more easier, understanding that they were just looking out for your best interest to grow you, right? So most adults, if they give you feedback and they're kind of on you, that's their love language for developing you. But it just depends on how it's delivered sometimes, but don't take it to heart, you know? And I think that's something that I had is when I was at Deloitte, is I took to heart. So something I don't think I mentioned of the entrepreneur swag is emotions, right? Emotions can take you on a path where you want to go this way, but take you this way. And in business, I don't apply emotions. I apply facts and execution, right? Your emotions, you can be, I had assumptions when I started. I'm like, the guy didn't give me a call back. He doesn't want to work with me. What did I say wrong? Did he not like me? Was I too expensive? Do I need to go back and lower my rate? And I got really good advice from an individual out here that focuses on sales development. And he said, just be patient and give them time to respond. All that anxiety was for nothing. Because a week later, 2 weeks later, he's like, oh, I had family business come up. Sorry I didn't get back to you. Let's move forward. I was like, oh, thank God. But I was just putting emotions and thoughts into something that I couldn't control. So I learned that a lot was sometimes you just have to be patient, and sometimes you just have to remove the emotions and just keep doing what you can do to keep moving forward. Any other questions?
First of all, great presentation. I appreciate you coming here to talk to us.
Thank you.
And I'm just curious because it sounds like you worked real hard to land your job in an accounting firm after college. So what made you want to like go to American Express, I believe you said? Well, like what made you want to go away from this accounting environment?
That's a good question, and I still have have some hard feelings about it, honestly. And this is going back to some of the lessons learned about emotions. So when I went from, when I started at Delay, I was now it's called advisory services, but I was in risk enterprise services. So I studied accounting and MIS. When I first went in, I did a lot of stuff on business process. So did a lot of stuff on internal audit, reviewing financial statements, doing risk assessments, kind of control, testing. And then I went into the IT side, which is called security and privacy. So everything you're hearing now at the what's called cybersecurity, I was kind of getting in and seeing, it was already happening, but seeing like the movement just like skyrocket upwards. It was a great opportunity, honestly. But the environment and the culture was slightly different, and I wasn't ready for that. It was in the beginning because I worked with people that had been in the firm for a long time, but Deloitte hires a lot of experienced hires, which is great, because you can learn from a lot of different people from different industries and different backgrounds that can apply things. However, that was a culture shock for me because I was so used to seeing things done by people that have been in the firm culturally their whole career, where I opened the door in a different path where it's a national presence. Like I traveled from East to West Coast for 2 years, working from people from LA, Chicago, New York, Florida, right? Well, all of those locations have different personalities, right? Anyone from the East Coast? Oh, so you guys don't even know. East Coast guys and girls are straightforward people, right? They don't play. Versus the West Coast, we're a little bit laid back and like, oh yeah, we'll just get it done. And no, East Coast, they're on you. And I was ready, but I wasn't mentally ready because my emotions weren't prepared for it, where I took things and constructive feedback to heart. And when I left Deloitte, honestly, I had a 30% increase in raise. I was like, the money's there, right? But I literally left on the wrong reasons. I didn't go back to my team members and partners that supported me from the time I came as a consultant up to senior consultant. I didn't feel like I can reach out to anyone to make changes, which is not true because that's how I got from internal audit to security and privacy at that time. I also just took a lot of things to heart and was immature in what I wanted to do in my career going forward. I didn't think that security and privacy was a fit for me because I wasn't passionate about some of the things that I was doing because I was seeing some of my friends do other projects that I thought were more fun. And that sometimes at Deloitte, they do help you grow your career to the degree they're looking for. But I was kind of selfish wanting to say, I want to do it this way and that way, right? Well, I went and the grass was not as green on the other side. The money was, but not the grass. But what I learned at American Express was to be a better leader from leadership. It was a great opportunity, a great department, but I honestly didn't really see the leadership there, but I learned how to be a better leader. And then I had a friend approach me to go in and do consulting for small businesses. So to kind of answer your question there, I was challenged by just not knowing what I didn't know, and I didn't leverage my network to address those challenges. So I became a hermit crab. And that's not good and professional when you have a team that's there to work with you. And I was a top performer at Deloitte, right? I had partners surround themselves around me when my second year, third year, starting to train me to move up. And I just didn't leverage it. I was ignorant. So those are things that I really make sure that I try to reflect on today, and why I bring that entrepreneur swag up, because my ego was blocking me. It was killing me. They didn't know what they were talking about. I don't need their feedback. I was the one rating before. They don't know what they're talking about. No, that crushed me. So those are lessons that sometimes you have to really go through to be able to grow yourself. And I'm glad I did. I regret a little leaving Deloitte, but now I feel that I'm growing myself in a unique, better place than I was if I would have still been there. I think I still would be in a projection growing, but I'd probably be more bald than I am now. And I think that life would definitely be a little bit different. But I see my friends, they're all senior managers, directors, almost soon to be partners. They'll make really, really good money there. However, I firmly believe that if I keep developing myself and developing others and developing my firm to have more resources to work on projects, I'll be there too. But I have to build that confidence, I have to build that comfort, and I have to work for it. So yeah, thank you for bringing up the point about working hard. Your work ethics will be applied to everything that you do to move forward. If you don't think people are watching you, they are. So, I'm a type of person that, I'm more of a night owl, but I make sure I get everything done. I keep accountable and I'm responsible for what I say and do. So that's a big thing when you're working on the team. If you say you're gonna do it, do it. If you're not able to meet that expectation, communicate it. Don't wait to the last minute, right? The last minute means that yes, you may have been scared, but you weren't able to not admit your failure, but be accountable to what you may not be able to accomplish, right? And no one's going to look down on you if you come to it early and like, hey, I need a little bit more time. I need a little extra help. But they're not going to be very positive of you if you come in at the last minute when everyone else has their piece to the puzzle and then you don't have your piece, right? It's like similar to team projects in school, right? You probably have that one person that never does anything, right? I remember getting in trouble in college because I called out the dude in class. This is a math class, this is a business math class, and most of us got together the night before and did the work, and the rule was you had to go and stand up together no matter what and present. And I'm the type of person that has an East Coast mentality. My mom's from Philly, where I told him in front of the teacher, I go, I don't think he should be standing up here with us because he didn't do any work. That didn't go over so well. So that was a lesson learned of like how to manage situations better, because I didn't realize at the time I didn't just embarrass that individual, I also embarrassed myself by putting myself out there in a manner that's not as positive as that could have been handled a bit more maturely. But I was hot. I was like, you're here, gonna get the same grade as us, but you didn't do anything. But those are lessons learned sometimes you have to go through. Does that help answer your question? You had a question in the back?
Just to like bounce, I'll sit over here. Just to go over what she mentioned in the pink jacket, like her question relating to like knowing people and like networking and that kind of deal. I've actually had an experience where networking got me in the door. So like I posted on Twitter tagging the CEO of this company.
Smart.
Saying, I built this thing, your company actually featured it on their Twitter. And like a couple hours later, I got a tweet back saying, email me your resume. 10 hours after that, I was on the phone with a recruiter.
That's what's up.
So it's all about just like knowing people, knowing your surroundings, and then just getting that execution.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the digital aspect of it. Like literally, like things have changed in 10 years. I think I graduated college 10 years ago, almost 11. The years go by fast, y'all. So enjoy it. But yeah, digitally, you can be very innovative how you approach things, right? I've seen people before even they send their resume, do videos and submit that to people, right? Tap in that open network. It's so much more easier. They get connected. There's no excuses to say that there's no way I didn't know that person. Well, LinkedIn shows you who you're connected with, and if you can find them on Twitter or Facebook and they don't reply, keep hitting them up. You know, in the construction industry, people literally don't get back to you all the time. But what do they respect? People that are continuously and proactively following up with them, asking them the question. Literally, that stuff pays off. It sounds annoying, it's very tedious, but sometimes it'll pay off. You just don't know when. You know, Horsefly Brewing Company, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, Phil will do really, really well, but I literally went back every month and said, what's up? It pays off. You just never know. It doesn't hurt. So thanks for sharing that story. Any other questions? All right. So who's involved in a club or organization on campus? So I want to challenge everyone that didn't raise their hand to get involved in campus. You just never know who you may meet. Tomorrow I'm going, Avnet sponsors the Innovation Open. I think ASU has like 3 different tiers of where you can grow to pitch your business. And Lupe Fiasco is going to be there, right? You guys know who Lupe Fiasco is? Kick, push, kick. All right, let's get down. I'm lucky that I had a friend that's been helping me connect through Avnet to say, hey, this event's happening, you should show up, right? If I didn't know that person, I would have probably never known about that event. So get involved on campus. I was a nerd, but I had fun. I did pre-law fraternity because I thought I was going to be a lawyer, did that for 2 years. I did the honors fraternity for 1 semester. Don't ask why. Just joking. I was involved in the student union. I worked at the front desk. They had what's called a commuter student affairs for students that commuted. That was paid, but still involved on campus. So yeah, you can get involved in campus and get paid, but I was part of the accounting association, and yeah, I worked. But yeah, getting involved in campus adds value to your resume. Volunteering and doing activities through that organization adds to your resume. Getting your resume built as you're going through college should be part of the experience that creates your credibility to grow yourself and to get the job you're looking for. Organizations are looking for those people that are active and involved, right? So I do challenge all of you that didn't raise your hand to find something that you're passionate about that may give back or where you can connect with other like-minded individuals. You just never know what doors may open, right? So I'm a firm, and I learned this when I was at Deloitte and consulting at American Express. One of the VPs I worked with invited me out to dinner, and we went to this nice fancy restaurant in North Scottsdale, and the VPs asked me like 20 questions about things that were all great and about life, but it just all went over my head. And the lady telling me was like, she's sitting here positioning you to offer you a job, and you like didn't even like bite it. I was like, oh. And she's like, always leave the door open. If someone opens the door, at least talk to them. And that was a great experience, right? Because before I was like, but if I don't apply myself and put myself out there, then how am I going to know about those opportunities? So that goes back to the point of applying yourself, right? So go out there, get involved, and it can change your life. You just never know, right? So, and I'll give you a great example of how that happened to me over the last 2 years. So I mentioned that conference, right? That conference I went to, I was one of 3 entrepreneurs across the whole U.S. that the Kauffman Foundation could invite. But me applying myself to give back to my community gave me that opportunity. I went out to Kansas City twice, right? And I remember when I took over me and 2 other individuals, and then another 4th, one of my friends came and joined our team. I remember one of the individuals that left this organization, they wanted to just stop it and to say, nope, we're not going to do it anymore. And 3 of the other guys I started with, it was our first day to join the team. and they're trying to pitch to us to do something else. One of the other guys said, the Kauffman Foundation hasn't done anything for me. Well, when you do things from a volunteer perspective, it shouldn't be for what it does for you, it's for what you can do to help others. And literally 2 years later, I got invited to one of the best events I've ever been in my life. A game-changing event. You're meeting CEOs from all over the world, some of the top CEOs and leaders in their industries in the US and regionally. And now I have new connections I never had before, right? Like it would have been like pulling teeth to even try to find out who that person is. I met a guy who I still keep in touch with, him and his wife. He has about a $200 million business, and they export recycled goods, cardboard. It's one of the #1 exports out of the US. I had no clue, right? But this individual now is looking for ways to give back his investments and his money, right? And I said, hey, I'll help you, find a investment firm or a private equity company that aligns to your values and vision to help other entrepreneurs grow. But being able to apply yourself and give back and connecting opens up different doors. So, any other questions?
It's more of a curiosity than a question, just because I really like the name of your business, the Black Diamond. Just how did you come up with the idea? Can you take credit for it, or did someone?
No, I cannot. That's a good question. So, literally, like when I came back from India, I was a bum for like 4 weeks. I was like, what am I going to do with life? I don't want to figure it out. Because it was like, go work for Deloitte or start something. And I literally didn't know what I wanted to start, right? Because I was kind of dependent on that person that I started something with, and then it didn't work out. And I didn't have the maturity and the mindset to really challenge myself to get to that next hurdle. So when that first client, Elephant Coffee Importers, called me, literally that day was the day I was supposed to find what I was going to do in my life. Like I was going to apply for jobs, update my resume. It was just like someone just opened up the new seat in my life. They said, hey, I need help. I literally was on the next plane one way. I was there for 3 weeks. I didn't even get paid on all the money I should have made on it. But I didn't have an EIN, which is like your social security number. I didn't have a name to my business. Didn't have a website. Didn't even have a contract for them. I just rolled up my sleeves and helped them apply for about $400,000 for what's called AR factoring. It's a form of a loan through factoring at a high percentage that gives you money. Unfortunately, they couldn't get the money because it was going to go to Kenya and it had to stay in the States. But that was what I call, I have 2 baby clients, I call them, because without them believing in me to start my infancy in my business, I don't know where I would be. But I was trying to form a name, right? I was like, all right, I had something before, but I don't really know what to call myself. I didn't want to be like Keeton and Associates. Like I think that's just so generic. But I hit up all my friends, right? I'm like, hey, what about this name? What about this name? And they knew one of my good friends, John Saul, knew my passion for skiing black diamonds. Like he would write rhymes about me being black and riding black diamond terrain. Like it was stupid. Like, so he was like, what about Black Diamond Business Solutions? I was like, perfect, right? But still then in that first year, I didn't have a vision or really connectivity. I kind of knew my storyline of connecting the challenges business owners have to the challenges of skiing this terrain, but I never fully put the full solution together until this last year. Or even my website today needs to be better in telling my story, and I focus so much on helping my clients, but I need to also come back this year and beginning and help myself in developing that site. But that was something based on friends. So Sensigrate was self-created. So that was a little interesting because I was like, I can't have a four-word business anymore. If I'm gonna do this, I gotta make it a little bit easier to remember. There's a lot of people just call me Black Diamond. They don't say Black Diamond Business Solution. That's long, like it's long. But Sensigrate, I was like, well, I want sensors, I want integration, I want technology. So I just kept like rewriting different words, combining these 3 words together. And then I formed Sensigrate. So Sensa is kind of sensors, And then I had since I or Sinsa, and I didn't like. I was like, since I sounds like something Asian, like sensei, so that's not going to be the best. And then I was like, oh, Sinsa, great. And something I was reading kind of hit the nail on the head when I was researching stuff about sensors, and then something about great, like the word great and the positive was like, and then integrate. And so I was like, oh, that kind of works. And it just kind of came together. So one thing in business I will say is don't fall in love with your name. Do not fall, like if you, the reason is there's so many different variables. There could be trademark or copyright reasons, or you may have a business partner that comes in. I have a friend who, they had a company called Ujwa. And now it's called Matter Mission, and the product they're going to first is called Kegel Belt, but her business partners, the first thing said, we gotta change the name, right? And I have a friend, I wanna call him out, so hopefully he can see this, otherwise I'll show it to him. He has a company that's a tea company, and they do matcha tea, right? You guys know what matcha tea is? Really delicious green tea. He gets it from Japan or China, but the name of the company is called Tease Me. Tea, and then tea, because he wants to sell other teas, but he's focusing on the matcha, but he doesn't get how it could be misperceived as something different. So that's been, I haven't got him to change the name yet, but that's one of the examples of don't fall in love with your name. Like, he is passionate about it. I'm like, dude, like I ran into him like last year when I was trying to help him out more. And like, I don't mind helping people out because people help me. So that's something, people are like, well, how much does it cost? I was like, what do you really need to get done? I'm like, oh, dude, well, let's sit down for 2 hours and let's knock it out. Give me a beer. I don't care. But I remember being in a coffee shop. I was like, dude, you got to change this. It's like, all right. Because I came up with some names to be alternatives. I was like, let's put out a sheet of paper and write out these names and go around the coffee shop and see what people think to vote on a name and get their feedback. Dude, he wouldn't want to do it. I was like, dude, see, if you're not willing to go to the customers that you want to work with and get their feedback, then how are you going to grow yourself? How are you going to grow the business? So that's something that I focus on a lot of my clients is the customer engagement and experience. And I think Deloitte for that, they called I did 3 weeks of training my first year, like 3 weeks in a row, like training. It's cool though, they still wine and dine you, and then they sing you to the wolves. But during that time, they had what's called the Deloitte client experience. And that meant a lot to me, and it still means a lot to me today, where I apply that same methodology to serving my customers. My customers always come first. And they're all equal no matter what I'm billing them per project. They all get the same level of love and attention from the small to the big. And the Deloitte client experience really hones in that you will do what you have to do to keep your client happy, to help them be successful. And so when people tell me, they're not willing to make a change or even go and survey, I'm like, well, you're going to be stuck going in and understanding how they're going to do better. For ECI right now, we just put a 20-question questionnaire together, survey, because they've never gone back to their customers over 5 years. That's their experience. I go, how are you going to change your messaging and adapt your sales process if you don't know what your customers think about you? And I even go out here to some coffee shops like Infusion Coffee down the street here, and ask, people know their brand, but I was like, I want them to rave about you. I want them to have a passion for you. I want them to be your first insight when they think about where they're going to buy their next Kenyan or Ethiopian coffee. But you don't know that until you engage with them to figure out how you can make that relationship grow, right? So I think it's really important too when you get into your own business, or even when you're working in teams, is like I mentioned before, getting that feedback, because it just helps you grow as an individual, right? You're always going to be growing as an individual no matter what age you're at. You're always going to be challenging yourself. So that's something that you will mature and develop over time. But yeah. How about yourself? What do you do? Are you at ASU? What are you studying? Can you hand her the mic, please?
I'm a freshman studying environmental engineering.
Oh, nice. What made you get into environmental engineering?
I've always been interested in like environmental stuff, and right now I'm involved with Defend Our Future, and we're an environmental organization on campus.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you like being involved in that group?
Yeah, I just started this semester.
Oh, nice. Okay. What kind of activities do you guys do?
We do a lot of canvassing, just informing people about like environmental policy and talking to their senators to like be involved politically.
Is anyone else here in environmental engineering? No. All right. Just out of curiosity, I have a couple clients in Colorado. It's a big area. It'll always kind of be, especially now with concerns of green and sustainable energy. I think the sustainable engineering is part of Fulton. Those are good if you guys have the opportunity to take those classes. I didn't study or have classes in my background, but I definitely recommend it because it will be the utmost importance as we keep growing, especially with population growth. Do you know by 2025, it's estimated the world population will be 8.1 billion, right? So how do you provide for the food we have today on the energy that we're using? How do you support that infrastructure? Right? So that's what I really like about smart cities is we have to depend on data to solve these problems uniquely versus what we see now, where some of the clients I'm targeting, we're focusing on how do they be more proactive than reactive, right? And I'll give you an example for some of you that are newer to ASU or been here or from Phoenix, State Farm building, right? Do you guys ever drive by there during rush hour? Do you ever want to drive by there during rush hour, right? Well, how did the city really plan for that? That building actually was constructed to be in place before the recession, but now it's in place now. And now the city's trying to figure out, like, how do you solve that congestion area from Rio Salado right here at Mill all the way to Scottsdale Road, right? I remember coming down here for a meeting. I was like, what is this war zone? I'm like, no, I'm not driving down here again. So now cities have to start really, before placing a building and putting new apartments or whatever, retail, really saying, how are we going to change our infrastructure? Most cities aren't expanding their roads anymore. And the reason they're doing that is they're like, autonomous vehicles are going to help solve our problem down the road, but that's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen 10 years from now. You know, the US government just approved only 100,000 new autonomous vehicles to be on the US roads. It's only 100,000 cars, right? I think Uber has 40 or 50 in the valley now, and Waymo just ordered another set of units. I think they're over 100. But that's not enough to solve the problems we have to do ride sharing, right? So we really have to really think about, and as engineer students, how we're going to make things simpler and easier, because think about the mindset of someone that drives a commute an hour and a half in total a day. What happens if their commute is only 30 minutes, right? What happens economically? That's where things are going to be changing, where we have to be innovative in how we solve those problems, right? And for me, my solution is really targeting creating safety on our roads. You have about 40,000 people die on our roads every year. It doesn't seem like a lot considering how many people drive on the roads every day, but the best way I heard it is imagine a 747 crashing every day. All right, well now that to me was my wake-up call, like, oh wow, that 40,000 is actually really important, right? I can't say I know of anyone that's died. Actually, I know one person that's died from a car accident, but there's a lot of unfortunate events, and a lot of them are human caused. So that's why there's a huge push for autonomous vehicles, even federal government supporting to increase that safety and eliminate lives lost based on human error. Right? So technology is good, and technology also can be bad, but we have to have be cognizant of how do we apply it to make our lives better and safer for a better world tomorrow. So good.
I guess just on the topic of autonomous vehicles, like being in computer science, one of my classes we kind of talked about just by nature of being autonomous, a lot of people are very scared, and they intentionally try to destroy these like autonomous vehicles because they don't want to be replaced by a robot or machine or anything like that.
Yeah, so Right now, I think it's 60% of people are not comfortable with autonomous vehicles. There is a huge risk on cybersecurity, right? You got the people that want to be the black hats and do harm. You're always going to have that. Even with blockchain right now and cryptocurrency, there's going to be people that want to steal your coin and the transaction information that you get. So, one, public concern over the safety of these vehicles have to increase for the Waymos, the Mobileye with Intel, the Ford, the Cruise, the Lyft, the Uber, the Teslas, to really be able to fully drive without a human, right? And that takes trial and error data, but promoting how they're going to keep you safe. The one thing we talked about was a vehicle-to-vehicle communication. Well, that tells you, based on who you are, where you go everywhere, right? That's a concern for myself. I don't want some system knowing where I'm going, but guess what? If you have an Uber app, anyone use Uber? That app's always on tracking your data, right? But do you know it, and are you comfortable with it? And do you trust those organizations to keep that privacy? Uber's had some issues, right? They had people their own employees tracking their ex-girlfriends and friends down and seeing it, right? And that goes into what's called user control access. So what kind of access do you have access to in your environment, and does that help you perform your job or not, right? And those are just called, it's kind of from an audit control environment. But as consumers, I want to know what Uber's doing. So the only time Uber has that setting is when I need the Uber app. Otherwise, it's always off. I just don't think they need the data. They're tracking you even if you're here in this room right now. So public safety and concern has to increase over education. So a lot of these corporate companies are, like Intel has a campaign with LeBron, where they have him in a model car where there's no pedals and there's no steering wheel. And he's talking about going somewhere without the hassle of having to depend on himself driving and the safety that he's going to get there. I believe Uber's doing stuff. Who else is it? Ford, and there's GM, right? Or Volvo right now has commercials. By 2019, 2020, none of their cars, they promise, will be in accidents. But that's based on all the standards they're putting on vehicles through the National Highway Transportation Association. There's now new parameters that are requirements. So cameras have to be on the car for reversing, lane changing prevention. So cars don't go, some of these are add-on features right now, but eventually they will be standards. They'll be part of the car cost. A front-end collision, right? You see the commercials where you're not paying attention, it brakes for you. That's a new standard. Being able to identify the lanes. Gosh, what else is there? Speed control, right? Different zones. So they're doing it to avoid, because in Arizona alone, I think it was $8 billion for all deaths that occurred on the road in 2016. That's what it costs our economy, right? And if you really think about it, like even from the time the resources respond, all the resources that are there, from emergency responses to traffic control, like all of that's a cost. And then if there is a death, unfortunately, well, then you have to do the whole processing of the body and all that paperwork. And then all the insurance, like it just economically cycles through and just kind of goes up. So we do have to reduce the safetiness and deaths on the road to also help us out economically. However, when you do pull in autonomous vehicles on the road in the future, how will governments make money off traffic infringements? Right? That's a big part of how they get money. So now, before you change the laws, you have to think about how you're going to make up that revenue. Did I answer your question? Sorry.
I didn't really have a question. I guess just a comment off stuff you were already talking about, just based off some, like my database class.
Yeah. And what was the statement again?
Oh, it was just how, like, by virtue of being autonomous, like there are end users who will intentionally try to like destroy it or intentionally try to like drive it off the road in fear of like, oh my gosh, I'm getting replaced by a machine or a robot or whatever.
So I think when people hack environments, I don't think it's always necessarily to do harm versus like what we're seeing in cyber warfare with, the China, Russia, Ukraine, they're trying to take down infrastructures of nations, right? Where I think some people that are hackers, it's more of a pride. Look what I did. Look what I achieved. There's a guy who, I forget the guy's name. He has an application where he's trying to prove the concept of building an autonomous vehicle through your smartphone camera alone. And then he's basically paying people to hack these cars. But he's the same guy that hacked the first iPhone and hacked Sony's PlayStation 3 and got sued by Sony for it. But his claim, I think he won. I think his claim was, you gave me the device, it's mine, I can do anything. But I think the issue he had is he gave it out how to hack for everyone else. So there will always be people that are unfortunately either trying to do it to cause harm or doing it from an ego standpoint of saying, this is what I can do, here's my skill set. So that's why security and privacy when you're as a CIS major is key, because there's always going to be that potential threat and risk that we have to prevent and detect so that we don't have that chain effect. So yeah, that's where I think a lot of the society has to get comfortable with how these car manufacturers are going to protect them from a privacy and a security perspective.
Yeah. Even beyond that, I mean, it was just kind of even like cars physically trying to smash the other cars through, like even beyond just hacking, just because of like, who knows, like Terminator, just like fiction of like, oh my gosh, this is like scary, like Skynet or whatever.
You're talking about crazy people.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I do not know how you can prevent that. I haven't heard it from that perspective, but it's to say that it couldn't happen would not be a reality, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of some of the things to think about was like in that industry is like, how do you work around like you said, like some people that are like kind of just crazy or just kind of out to destroy whatever you're working on.
One way is to, and they've talked about it and it hasn't came through, but when there's more cars, like create designated lanes for autonomous vehicles, right? If they do ride sharing, like with Waymo and Chandler, their testing environment is going around for parents with their kids and picking them up, and different programs for elderly people to pick them up and take them to appointments. So if there's going to be frequent stops for them, they almost need kind of like their own bus stop where, and there's what's called autonomous urban planning, where it's basically saying, how do we fit autonomous vehicles into our infrastructure based on what we have today? Because technically, if you think about it, our roads should be shrinking with autonomous vehicles because there'll be more people sharing the cars, or the pods they call them. So you can fit like 6 to 8 people, but it's getting people's mindset to say, I don't need my own vehicle, right? Our society has trained us to be like, you need an engine that revs and that will take you and go somewhere fast, right? Well, your car is only in use 5% out of the whole week. You go somewhere, you park, you sit there working all day, and then you leave. And then where do you put it? In your garage, and that's it. That's the use of the car. But when I was growing up, and probably for yourself, that's what everyone needed. Well, now it's actually kind of a problem when it comes to congestion and traffic and pollution. Do we really all need a car, right? Or is there other ways? Like, look at all the different bike systems that are happening between Tempe and Scottsdale, right? They're trying to give people different access to ease congestion and think about ways of approaching transportation. And we have to, like I said, you get, like right now we have spring training coming up on top of all the baby boomers, or I'm sorry, the snowbirds. In Tempe, you guys don't have a huge effect of the snowbirds, but once I cross the highway and I go to Scottsdale, oh man, I can tell instantly after I come back from traveling that there's more people in town. All right, well imagine as Tempe keeps growing as one of the fastest growing cities in Arizona again, imagine when there's more apartment complexes right here on Rural. Right? Like, I'd rather be biking. You know, it's to get 5 blocks, you might as well live in LA. So things will keep adapting, changing, but it's getting people's mindsets to accept that change. right? Most people are not going to want to give up having their own car. But autonomous vehicles, what will happen is you'll be able to get dropped off to work by your vehicle, and that same vehicle can go and be a ride share for the rest of the day, and you can make money off of it. That's kind of what the concept Turo is starting with, right? You ever heard of Turo? They're based in California, and they have an office in Scottsdale at Desk Hub. Right now, they're kind of the Airbnb for car rentals. So you can put your car on the market, and people can come and rent it from you. But long term, their goal is, I believe, I haven't done the full research, but their goal is to prove the concept that people want to use other people's cars as a different convenience versus having their own car. So, but these innovations and technology and development have to come from somewhere, and people have to start accepting them. It just took my mom last year to accept Uber. She's like, I'm not riding no stranger. I was like, have you been in a taxi? I'm not riding no stranger. My brother went with them to the All-Star game in Florida, and she's like, oh my God, I'm gonna use Uber all the time. I'm like, I'm trying to tell you. So it just takes time, and so different generations have to adapt. I think, surprisingly, I am a millennial, but I'm an 80s baby. Because you know there's a difference between an 80s and a 90s baby, right? We grew up with a cordless phone, or the phone had a cord on it. You guys grew up with smartphones. So how we interact with things is way different, but I'm open for a lot of this because I'm seeing the impact. I hate driving. You know, like if I can get somewhere in 5 minutes for just 20, I'm all for it. If I can wake up, because I'm not a morning person, if I can wake up and sleep to work, it'll save me so much. But those days are over when mom's not taking me to school anymore. So, so yeah, things are going to keep changing, and we have to start being open and flexible to make those changes happen for the positivity of humanity. Because, like I said, if you get congestion and traffic, you know, people aren't going to go to work happy. So, all right. Well, I think it's probably 8 o'clock. So, unless anyone has any last questions. All right, it's like right at 8. So, thank you very much for having me today. I hope each one of you learned something unique and will take something I said today and apply it to your lives. And for those that are not involved on campus, get involved on campus. All right, thank you. And I'll stick around if you guys have any extra questions.